beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with My Daughters. Today, we'll be talking about mentors, sponsors, and your corporate sisterhood. I am your host. I am Kwaida Shudamareka. And today, we'll be talking about something that is very close to my heart, the power of community. Finding your own tribe, your support, where you belong, where you grow, a space to be authentically you, people in whose company your vulnerability becomes strength, and where we lift each other up in our careers. You've probably heard these words tossed around a lot: mentorship, sponsorship, sisterhood. But what do they really mean in our daily lives? Transform your journey. Today, I've got two incredible ladies who work exactly in this space. Dare I say, they don't only work, but they live it. The space of managing talent, where they deal with mentorship, formal programs, but really as people whose purpose is exactly that, seeing people's lives transform. They will share with us in terms of what those really mean through their stories. And the ladies with me is Zani Mashinini and Nthabiseng Kometsi. We will be having these conversations, and they will be dropping practical tips on how one builds this tribe. What does it even look like? And so whether you're just starting out your career or looking to elevate your game, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. First up, Nthabi and Zani will break down what's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship and why are they so important. I'll start with you, Zani.
I'm tempted to borrow a quote I got from not an expert, but leaders, well-known leaders. He worked for a well-known company, and he distinguished between a sponsor, mentor, and a coach. And he said that a sponsor speaks for you, a mentor speaks to you, and a coach speaks with you. When I think about sponsorship, I think a sponsor takes things much further than a mentor. A sponsor is the person who advocates for you, who speaks about you for you when you're not in the room, in the relevant forums with very key people, very important people. So they elevate your stature and help you progress. So in a corporate environment, or even when you're running your own business, you need those individuals that can, shall I say, make it happen for you based on the good work that you've done already.
Tufts, how do the two differ for you?
So if we had to look at the definition of sponsorship that Zani's given us, that's a very divergent view looking outside. If you're wanting to move closer to the individual, then we'd be talking about mentorship. And with mentorship, it's really a container where the individual can get guidance, can get support, but also can hear and receive wisdom from someone who has more experience than them. It's a very intentional, safe container that has been set up to really make sure that an individual that has less experience is able to learn, talk about their vulnerabilities, and really make sure that they are provided with feedback on what they could work on, but also safe space for them to be encouraged.
Love that in terms of, as you are saying, what the mentor is that person who says, I've walked the journey. This is where I stepped. You can step where I stepped. It worked for me, but also just realizing that you are also a person of your own. But I also heard somebody say, sometimes you don't have one mentor because people are complex. And people are dynamic. You may love one aspect to learn from this person, but they may suck on another aspect. This person said he had a boss who, when he needed to be held accountable and get to achieve things, he knew to go to that person. But when he needed some love and empathy, she was not the person to go to. And it takes nothing away from that person being a mentor in the area. So it's interesting because sometimes I think we expect too much from people. I'm just saying. So for me, then my question is, we do agree that they are both crucial and they provide different aspects to our career growth. Would you agree, or should one index more on a sponsor than a mentor? And can really one go around and ask people to sponsor them? Tabs, what's your view?
I definitely think you need both to thrive. However, you have to be quite intentional in terms of what you need, whether you need sponsorship or mentorship at which stage in your career. And so prior to determining whether you need sponsorship, mentorship, or even allyship, I think there's some self-reflection that's required. And that speaks to the point that you've just made around having different mentors to serve different purposes. So absolutely, you need both mentorship as well as sponsorship, but you need to be very clear at which stage in your career do you need certain aspects.
In terms of exactly that, I can see as we talk about a mentor, it is somebody who you see them doing certain thing and doing it well, and you want to learn that. But for a sponsor, it's a little bit different, right? Because this is almost reversing the relationship, because this person has to believe in you and what you have to offer. What is your take around how does that go about happening? Is it an automatic process? Is it you intentionally asking certain people to be sponsoring you? How does that in real terms happen?
It's interesting when you observe those individuals that are very career focused and very deliberate around their career trajectory. And that's what it is. It is about you being intentional. If you don't start off with saying, that's my ambition, naming it, owning it, and making it happen, you then don't even know where to start. You won't know that actually I will need a sponsor because nobody knows me. How are you going to make sure that people understand exactly what your contributions are? So you have to actually identify those people that you know are influential, those people that make it easy for you to be known, easy for people to even want to invite you to other conversations and other forums. So I think you have to design it, unfortunately, when it comes to a sponsor. Mentors are far easier because it's informal, it's chemistry, it's more intimate. A sponsor can be quite distant from you. So you have to basically design it in such a way that you are able to identify, meet them, convince them.
Inspire their confidence
exactly.
in you.
If they're not confident in you, I don't think you can dictate to them. They have to want to sponsor you as well. So get the work done, right? Start there. That must be a given. I know people say hard work is not the only thing, but that is something you must bag so that your sponsor doesn't feel that they have to jeopardize themselves by speaking on your behalf.
I love that. There's reputation.
Brand reputation, very important. So you've got to build your brand so that your sponsor can find it easy to do their job on your behalf.
I love that because when I sponsor you, my reputation is also on the line as the sponsor, because this is the person in whose eyes every meaningful project looks like you. So if I mention you and you get given this project that is important to the success of the organization, when you're not doing well, people will remember how you got there, and the name of the sponsor will come up and their reputation will be dented. As you are saying, with the mentor, the relationship is cozy, is intimate, it's between the two of us. But here, you need to give me something that I am going to go and sell in the room that you will not be present. So that responsibility should not escape people, right? Thank you.
Mentorship is that safe space where you get nurtured so that you can go out into the world to be sponsored.
How about the reciprocity of these relationships? Do we get to a point where there is reciprocal benefit, where you're not only taking from your sponsors or your mentors, but you give as the person who is being mentored? Or is it just one way, me receiving?
Absolutely. I think like with all relationships, these are reciprocal. I think both parties have to be open to learning. And initially at the beginning of the partnership, of a mentorship relationship, even a sponsorship, it would seem that the mentee takes a lot more of the learning, receives a lot more. But I think as the relationship matures, mutual respect builds between the parties and there's peer mentorship that starts to present itself. The world is evolving so much that even individuals that may be sponsors and may be more elevated in terms of stature, in terms of experience, require sponsorship in different circles. And a mentee or someone that is more junior that is being sponsored might be in a position to provide a leader that is an executive with that sponsorship or that allyship in different circles that they may not be able to access. And of course, if it's a relationship, it becomes longer lasting beyond the bounds of the corporate in which they may have met. And then, of course, there's so many layers of reciprocity that then present themselves.
In terms of practically now in the workplace, what are the strategies of finding these mentors and sponsors? How does one nurture those relationships and make them work for their careers?
You walk over to Tla and you say, "Hi, Tla, my name is Zani and I'm looking for a mentor. I'm really inspired by the work you've done for this organization and I'd like to learn from you." I think it's as simple as that. If you don't take that bold step, and it's okay if Tla says no. You know, there's Ntabi, go to Ntabi Seng. Ntabi Seng will say yes, but make sure you're actually putting yourself out there. People talk about the elevator speech. That stuff works. So make sure when you're in the lift and you've got a potential mentor in the lift that you can take advantage of that time alone with them where it is safe. So you're not in front of people and you don't feel embarrassed. But you've got to learn those skills. You've got to be able to approach someone. And when we talk about networking, you'll see why this is important. And I think back to the relationship, in the beginning, the burden is on you. You have to make it easy. You have to make the time. You have to make it be flexible. And I think if you feel you need to convince someone to be a mentor, impress them. Go ahead and do that. So say, "Can I send you an email just to tell you what I've done?" Look, I think being organized is important. In my experience where I've mentored individuals, I don't want to say the worst relationships, but the ones that haven't been effective was when somebody put the burden on me. First meeting, not prepared, don't know what you want to ask me, but I've made time to be with you. So what am I saying? I think it starts with you. Don't wait and don't over-engineer it. I think it is just about walking over to the person that you've identified.
You know, Zani, you've just reminded me many, many years ago when I was much younger, I went to an event and it was a networking event. And after the speakers had said their piece, there was a young lady that had a notepad and she was walking up to everybody and taking down their numbers. And I remember reflecting and thinking, this is not what I want to do. I wasn't too sure just yet how I wanted to network, but I knew in my core that it needed to be a lot more authentic. And so you spoke about being quite deliberate and being intentional. I think that's important as well. So having absolute clarity to say, I want a mentor, but this is what I want to learn from them. Quite often you look up to role models in the business and you think, I like Zani, I'd like to be like her. But why would you like to be like her? What is it that you'd like to glean from her? And that self-reflection is important. In many of my first coaching sessions or mentorship sessions, I actually say, I'd like us to, as a first session, talk about what it is you want to achieve. And then in our following sessions, you need to have an agenda that's been set. You need to have clarity as to what it is that you're wanting to discuss in this conversation. So as you're saying, that level of ownership is required. When you're seeking a role of a coach or a mentor or a sponsor, you need to be very clear on what it is that you're wanting to work on.
Walk up, tell it as it is, authentically, humbly as you can. I have had people trying to get to that relationship, but then they start in a very little frivolous manner. Yeah, I love your dress. I love how that doesn't bow down. That doesn't.
Not authentic, actually.
It's not a thing to get. You just name what do you want, because immediately you're doing those little compliments here and there. I'm like, what do you want? Can we get to why you are here? So don't give your people guessing, especially if you value their time. And also I'm hearing you saying, just respect people's time, come prepared.
Yeah.
let's make this go. It's not your friend that you are catching up. Somebody who is probably busy, is having responsibility, just know what you want to be engaging on. So also talking about the women being there for other women, the sisterhood in the workplace. I guess mentors and sponsors and everybody has no gender. I was mentored very well by a dear boss who was an Indian male. We didn't share a common background culturally, but he was the best mentor I've ever had. But there is a time and space for sisterhood in corporate environments. How important and how does one cultivate that group of strong women that are in their corner in the corporate environment and even beyond, maybe?
I think it's definitely a mindset. Sisterhood is not new to us. If we look at many women's upbringings, our mothers were part of stokvels. There were many communities of sisterhood that our mothers had formed. I mean, we remember what funerals looked like on Thursday and Friday evenings prior to the burial on a Saturday. They have always been role models of sisterhood. And to your point, Kwaita, it is now time for us to extend that to the corporate environment. For whatever reason, for the longest time, there has been a sense of perhaps the need to protect one's space. But there's so much more power when we do foster a community within the corporate environment. We now talk about operating no longer in a VUCA world, but in a BANI world. And with us operating in a world that is brittle, that is anxious, that is nonlinear and incomprehensible, specifically because we're operating in a world that is incomprehensible, we need communities. There is no way that I alone can understand the complexity with which I'm faced on a day-to-day basis. And so we need to see the value in building communities for us so that we can be more effective in the work that we do, so that we also have spaces where we can just truly be ourselves. We also spend so much work doing our work as an expression of ourselves. Wouldn't it be great if we did that having fun, doing it with people that we enjoy and people that enrich us? And so there's so much value in sisterhood in the corporate environment, and it starts with each of us making it safe for us to trust each other, because I think that may have been the impediment in the past for whatever reason. You know, we acknowledge that there's value, and so let's create that safety for each other so we can truly build this community.
I love that, bringing your whole self to work, like we're talking about. You become that stokvel person in you that goes and break bread with your sisters. Why can't you be that from 8 to 5 to the sisters you find in the workplace? Beautiful.
I don't think it's possible to do life without community. I think if you look at men, they naturally do it. My son plays golf, so when I go to the golf course and I watch these men gather and just enjoying themselves, and I just think that's what it's about sometimes. And I think they also feel safe. I think they can say whatever, sit however, eat and drink however. And I think those are the things that you want in sisterhood. I want a safe space where I can say, yes, let's have our wine, let's sit, let's not talk about gender roles, let's not talk about being a responsible mom or whatever. You need those spaces. And I think I just don't see how we can do it without. Why don't we create those in a corporate environment? Because everybody else is doing it, even outside corporate. You mentioned our mothers or grandmothers did it. It's so unnatural for me not to have it. Absolutely unnatural.
It's almost a part of you that you deliberately cut when you go to work and think you will still feel like you are the full self. So it makes you tolerate your 8 to 5 space because it's what it is. And then you're going to be yourself after 5 and then have those connections. I think people can be more productive and they can be more happier more than anything. And you are talking about people are anxious. So if my anxiety starts at 8 to 5 while I'm at work, and then afterwards I'm going to have people whom I can be myself with, how much more productive would I be if I can have that feeling from 8 to 5 of this is me, flaws and all, this is where I'm good, this is where I'm not so good, and where I'm not good, a sister will come in and lift my wings when they forget to fly.
Like we said, it's a mindset. And if you take the first step, it's like vulnerability. If I'm appropriately vulnerable, I invite you to also be vulnerable. And it's the same thing with the sisterhood. You know, if each and every one of us can extend a hand of saying, let's have coffee together. Can I learn this from you? I really appreciated that, and show appreciative inquiry with empathy. It invites your sister in corporate to do the same.
I got a friend who would say, that which you just said, can you record it? Because it's so only you can say it that beautifully. So if you get that kind of affirmation from your sisterhood, the only thing you can do is being a better self, and you reciprocate, and we can make this place a better place, right? So now my listeners, or rather my daughters back at home, eager to take action. How should they approach potential sponsors? I know Zani had said, go and say it as it is. But how do I even know I need a sponsor in my career or in my life? It's a language that is not apparent or common where I come from. And here I see people with these mentors. I dread networking, because who do I become? I become awkward. I'm tall. I don't even know what to do with my hands. I stand in the corner and hoping nobody sees me, as tall as I am. But it's something that doesn't come naturally to me. How does one even begin to identify the need for the sponsor or the mentor?
I did research on this topic for my master's. So I coached and followed 10 women over about a year. And there were very clear themes. One of them is, from a gender perspective, unfortunately, the men have been doing it better. And I'm not saying they are better, but they've been doing it better, whether it's because they've been in the game longer than us. But having said that, it doesn't mean that women don't know how to do it. When it comes to our career, we've not been planning it. It's been accidental. It's been life stage driven. I've moved house. I've gotten married. I've had children. Those things seem to trigger career conversations for us. Whereas I find in a different gender, it's clear I'm here and I'm going to take the CEO's job. It's clear and I'm not going to apologize for it. Whether I'm experienced, whether I have the qualification, it doesn't matter. For me, that's important. And in this research, I learned that that's why women have to reach out for mentors and coaches and sponsors. We actually need more resources to make the shift. And I think the more we plan it, the more we structure it, the more we invest the time in understanding where do I go next, I think the higher the chances that it happens. So I don't think it's going to be the luck, it's going to be by sheer luck that I get a great mentor. It's not going to be sheer luck that I get that promotion or that increase or whatever. I do think a lot of it is going to have to be, yes, the hard work, etc. But now you've got to design this thing and you've got to have the right people at the right time doing the things that you want them to do on your behalf. So the plan has to come out, unfortunately.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you have to do the plan.
I appreciate that a lot, Zani. And it's so true that people stumble over their careers. Somebody says, there's a new role, won't you apply? Then you apply. It's going to be higher than where you are. Then you don't even sit back and say, what is the role going to do for me? For where I'm headed, because you do not know where you're headed. All you know, you're working, you earn at the end of the month, and you promote yourself socially in terms of those things that must show that I'm working. But there is no clear thought in terms of where you're taking it. But once you have a clear thought as well, I hear you saying this life was never meant to be done alone. Getting where you need to get, you need people, and that's where your mentors and your sponsors and your sisters come into play. And Tabs?
There is a song from my teens by Alanis Morissette, and she says, you live and you learn. And that was most liberating for me because it made me realize that I'm continuously learning. But even the role models I look up to are also learning. And so that gave me permission to reflect, plan, and then when I do feel like I need to learn, I could go to somebody that I believed knew more than me and say, this has just happened. I think I could have handled it differently. What would you have done? Because I think there sometimes is the need for us to display a false sense of strength. And a false sense of humility. So you need to be humble enough to know that you need to learn, but you need to be audacious enough to know that you can be greater than what you are. Unfortunately, we don't have those role models. We're having to be the role models of our daughters and our sisters and our younger girls that are looking at us. And that's what I would say to them. You need to have the audacity to believe that you can be anything. Maybe not all the time, not at the same time, but it is possible for you to achieve your dreams.
Oh, wow. Mouthful and tufts. Thanks for those insights. You ladies feel like we're getting started. But I would say before we wrap up, what will be your final words to the listeners, to the people listening to this? What would you love to leave them with?
I think don't close your eyes as you kind of walk through the stages of life. I think you open your eyes to see, is that the person I should stop and speak to at an event? If you get the invitation, expose yourself. I think don't shy away from taking those steps to be amongst the best. Sometimes we don't put ourselves in situations where I'm meeting people who know way more than me, who are far higher than me, who are doing far more than me. I think the more you surround yourself with people like that, you increase the chances. It becomes 5x, 6x, 7x possible for you to make it. If you diminish the possibilities by diminishing who you spend your time with and how many times you're out there, I think that's the horizon that you will have. You know, it'll be that. It won't be the one that makes you go further.
I think that's so powerful, Zanny. And my last word would be closely aligned. Every encounter matters. With every single conversation, you could be forming a long-lasting relationship. You could be learning something. You could be finding a network to help you solve a problem at work. But you have to show up. Sometimes you're not looking to find a mentor. Or you're not looking to find a sponsor. But because you showed up, you inspired their confidence.
Please don't wait to speak to somebody when you need them. I think those networks must be a way of life. Make time to have coffee with someone. You know, I meet headhunters for coffee all the time. I don't meet them when I'm looking for a job, you know, and likewise they meet me if they need, you know, anything on. So it's become reciprocal in some way. But I think what I've learned from that is I've been able to help somebody who had coffee with me 2 years ago. And we chatted for 2 years. But the day I was able to help them, I think the contract they got was worth millions.
And you had the social capital.
100%. So build that social capital. Don't build it when it's urgent, because that's not how it works. This thing is an investment. It's planned, and be smart about it.
If there's one thing I learned late in my career and I wished I could have learned earlier, was having coffee for coffee's sake.
That's it.
With people. And it hit me very hard when one psychometric assessor told me that I'm transactional about my relationships. And who wants to be transactional when we all want to be transformational, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what do you mean? He says, you meet people when there is something to transact, whether you're offering them help or they offering you help. You don't meet people because you are interested in people for who they are. So it was a lesson from me. It was very hard. It's a feedback that really punched me in the stomach, because how can I should know these things. People business. But for me, it's exactly what you are saying, Zanny. Go build a relationship for the sake of relationships, not for what is going to come. I heard somebody say, speaking to some young professional, says, they were asking the mentor, says, I don't like the conversation sometimes with the younger people because the mentor thing, because they just want to leverage on my networks without offering anything for those relationships. So it's building the relationship. It's wholesome. It's not just transacting over the knowledge and that. Thank you so much, ladies. Beautifully said. I also like the quote that says, a rising tide lifts all boats. So when we get this knowledge and we get learning, those that are around us also benefit from that. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and most importantly, your time. And to everyone out there listening, find your mentors, cultivate your sponsors, and embrace your sisterhood, because together we are unstoppable. Thanks for tuning in to Mentors, Sponsors, and your Corporate Sisterhood. I am Kwaida Shuda Mareka. Until next time, stay fierce, stay connected, and keep lifting each other up.